Good afternoon. So, Professor Brewster from Johannes Kepler University of Linz will give a presentation today within the field of expertise of curriculum design and development. So, Professor Brewster will give a presentation about blended learning as a key to skills, content, and learning success. He will show us how blended learning is integrated into a curriculum at a traditional university, and how it can also be used to promote communities of practice among learners. So I'm sure this will be very interesting and inspiring presentation in this field of expertise, but also even interesting for other field of expertise. So thank you very much, Eric, for accepting this presentation, and well, the floor is yours. So
thank you very much, Lourdes. Good afternoon, everyone from foggy and gray and very cold Linz. But I hope for the next 30 minutes that a little bit of sunshine will come into onto your screens and whatnot, and a few ideas also in talking about how I've approached exactly this concept of blended learning and how it fits into a curriculum or our curriculum, in other words, at Linz University. What I'd like to do first of all is talk about a few principles and fundamentals of what I'll call not only e-learning, but more importantly, learning and teaching. Also, challenges and designs that we've experienced for curriculum integration, as JKU is a traditional university, but moving exactly in the direction of offering more and more options, not only in traditional distance learning, but more in the area of blended and online learning. I'd like to talk about the two modules that I have designed, for the English curriculum, and use this as a model also of how this particular kind of course design could fit into the regular, or how it does fit into a traditional system. And another case study, a brief excursion into the idea of building communities of practice, and I'll use my writing course as an example for this, and then present some experience and observations both from the student side and of course from my side, and close the talk with some final thoughts. I have three fundamental principles throughout excuse me, Lourdes. Oh, okay. Thank you, Lourdes. Okay, you just switched off your microphone because I was hearing the echo in there. There's three fundamental principles that I have to my teaching, and the first one is something that I've always felt very, very strongly about, namely that the acquisition of knowledge, my knowledge, is a dynamic and an interactive process, which I'm going to look for, discover, and apply learning in a real world and problem-solving situations. And for me, this is the very, very core of my ideas in what we need to be doing in course design, and all the more opportunities that we have by using technology to support this idea. The second principle is that self-access, my own learning by definition, is my individual path to knowledge, along which, through trial and error and various other confrontations, trying out different tools, trying out different methods, that I discover my own limitations, and which provides me, a chance to reflect on this and break through my own individual barriers to learning. And something I found quite a long time ago when I began doing this, and something that's inspired me ever since, is actually what I feel very strongly about, or have felt very strongly about, for the past 40 years of my own teaching, and namely that I'm there, and what I do in course design, what I do in materials design, is there to enable student learning, okay, to take place, whether, of course, it's in the classroom or whether it's online. What I do, and what should be behind course design, and particularly nowadays with the ability to use technology to encourage the student-faculty contact, whether it's through email or online supervisions, or also in the classroom, virtual or real. But also to encourage then students, in other words, to collaborate more together on tasks, both in the classroom, in the virtual classroom, and of course also offline, and to encourage what we would call active learning. The tools nowadays give me, of course, a great possibility for prompt feedback. For instance, as we have this particular tool for this afternoon's webinar. Okay, so in other words, answering questions, so posting questions or comments, and carrying on a discussion from there. And also the possibility to emphasize the time on task, and above all, to increase the time that students have on their learning tasks. Naturally, we're communicating, okay, high expectations, both from technology and from our learners, but also from our teachers. And last but not least, that as a last best practice example, is to recognize and respect that people do have diverse talents and absolutely different ways of learning, and to take these facts and incorporate them into our course design. I've tried to sum this up as in the following diagram, which stemmed from the research that I did for my PhD thesis. But at the heart of all of our teaching efforts, but of course at the heart of learning, are our learners. And designing a course that is going to give them an opportunity to learn language, to learn the content of their various subjects, and to learn various skills. We're going to do this by doing them. We're going to do that in the context, okay, of the course, in the context of the subject, and ultimately for life. Recently, I was, and also in the review for the webinar this afternoon, I came across a very interesting article. It was actually a meta-analysis on the current literature with some thoughts on new technologies. And there were some quite interesting statements which fit in very nicely and to what I'm going to show you later on that the students say about their own learning, who have gone through these blended learning courses that I have offered, that actually with the new technologies I can learn more effectively than in the conventional classroom. That I also have more support for complex content and skills for learning them, that I can support and of course extend or expand communities of practice and encourage also more collaboration models. I thought two statements were quite significant here, that of all the trends in education and training that we have experienced, that we know, and that we've heard about, that blended learning is going to, or is among the top 10 trends in education and training, and that finally is actually going to, or predicted to, overtake other models of instruction. That's of course a future debatable point. I'd like to explore the situation that we have, excuse me, that we have at Linz University at the moment. We are a campus type university, one of the only two that are in Austria, but also the largest. We have approximately 20,000 students, most of whom, however, are commuters from as far away as, let's say, 100 or so kilometers in a circle around, but also people coming from areas of southern Germany, so southern Bavaria, and Czech Republic. Not to mention our exchange students from other European countries. We have, however, a situation that the number of students that we have working full or part-time is constantly increasing for various reasons, which I'll explain in a moment. And that we also have numerous single parents and caregivers who can't easily leave their jobs or their families, okay, for several days a week to attend classes on campus. And we also have a bit of regional orientation. In other words, Salzburg University would draw students from southwestern Germany, okay, from Italy, like in Innsbruck, for instance. Okay. Good. Okay, I'm back on camera, I see. And Linz has the same kind of draw for provinces around it, and of course around the neighboring countries. In actuality, 82% of our student body is employed, and of those, approximately 20% work somewhere between 1 and 10 hours a week. A third of them, okay, work up to 35 hours a week, and almost 30% work 36 or more hours a week. Half the students to support themselves and their education. In other words, the costs of education, transportation, living costs, okay, that they would have in the various hostels, and also to or improve their lifestyle and or standard of living. These are some of the reasons given that we have. Now, having experienced this myself, namely studying in Salzburg and having to, for both my MPhils and my PhD, there's a great deal of sympathy, okay, for persons that I have, persons namely who are working and working full-time or even working overtime hours and want to get on with their studies. So we also have, with this rise in student employment, we also have increasing amounts of diversity among our students' bodies. One of the most notable ones are influxes of students from Germany, but also from Czech Republic, former Yugoslavia, Hungary. And another factor is also that the age of our students is quite often, especially in these blended learning courses that I'll explain a little bit later on, being around 30 or so years. Naturally, as in all language classes, and that is my profession as a language teacher, there are actually observations of increasingly large differences in the niveaus of the language that are confronted. And of course, various reasons for taking up studies. This is together with the idea that a number of students are working and did not finish their university education or would like to begin a university education to promote their careers, or as many of our older students, 60+ students that we have, simply I would like to get back on the bandwagon, get back into the saddle, so to say, of learning okay, and studying once again. The challenges, of course, are many. And to meet these challenges, it's very interesting that course design combined with technology, and particularly in a blended learning mode, can be used to promote our social and communication skills. Certainly to, as we had a test earlier this afternoon, Lizzie and I had a test several times to test our IT skills. Okay. Needless to say, also to test our design skills, because my templates for this presentation don't look exactly the same as what you see at the moment. Okay, but I hope that will be rectified in the PowerPoint that will accompany this recording. But also to the necessity to use my language skills in the sense of foreign language skills, of course, to apply my content knowledge, and more to work at a distance, and of course to work face-to-face, okay, or in virtual collaboration with a team. And SAL, meaning self-access learning, is also something that is very, very widely needed and promoted, okay, above all, also with reflection and critical skills as part of it. And last but not least, to work across cultures, including the changes from a work culture that you've experienced and learning in there, from the high school experience, okay, to university, or again from a life experience and working after retirement and coming back to university. So the goal then in my thinking and course design, of course, is how can I promote and combine interaction, okay, to meet these best practice ideas and the fundamental principles that I've outlined before, also to guarantee and to promote self-access learning, and above all, in the whole process, how can I promote reflection, right, among learners, but also reflection among course designers and teachers. The answer to this question is something that we came up with approximately 8 years ago, which is called MUS. And this is the Multimedia Studies Service in Social and Economic Sciences. Social and Economic Sciences is abbreviated SOWI, S-O-W-I, okay, in the German. And the idea was, let's bring the campus to the student instead of the other way around. And let's do this by offering core courses, namely in either an online or in a blended learning mode, okay, for the social and economic sciences, and to aid this, let us also establish regional centers, okay, for the face-to-face contact, and use such devices as Moodle and Adobe Connect for the online portions. What we've designed in all of the MUS courses is that we have reduced or no face-to-face attendance and concentrated, condensed face-to-face phases, for instance, on weekends or over the course of several weeks in the summer months, okay? And to emphasize that the best effect we think is going to come out of it, and as we've shown has come out of it, with an emphasis on blended learning and of course the appropriate course design for that. We have quite a lot of multimedia support, and as I said, also regional centers. And what we've done is to create half-semester modules of approximately 7 weeks. A semester in Linz lasts 15 weeks. So to concentrate the work in 7-week blocks, okay, or also 7 weeks across the summer months. The pilot phase for the MUS courses began in 2008, but now in 2016, we actually offer approximately 60% of the curriculum in business, economics, and social sciences as either blended learning online, okay, MUS courses, which are for which the students are billed, but also moving in the direction of more open source courses, MOOCs in other words, but that's a further development. In English, we have 2 sets of modules that we offer. The first one, okay, was offered in the winter term of 2009-2010. Our first summer courses were held in 2010, and just recently we've developed a year-long course, okay, to enable also persons perhaps to sit out a semester yet complete their requirements for English within an actual calendar year. The MUS curriculum for English, the first module, which consists of 15 weeks, is composed of a course called Communicative Skills and Business English. I believe that is rather self-explanatory. And it has each half module has, of course, 75 hours of work, or if we look at it this way, a requirement, of course, for the learners is 10 hours of work per week. The same goes for the second module, which is composed of intercultural skills and language development, and Business English 2. The strategies that we've applied in designing these courses are through the use of technology, through face-to-face, to optimize the learning environments. And what has come out of it, and of course a goal naturally, is to promote the willingness of our students to learn English, particularly because it may be recognized as quote-unquote the world's most important language. I won't laugh here. But namely that the willingness to learn English, okay, is then supported, the motivation is greater, through actually developing positive teacher and learner attitudes, as I had outlined, okay, above. One of the things that's very vital, that was the marker that I was looking for, okay, is the awareness of problems that our students have, and to take this into consideration in our course design, whether it's through scaffolding or extending the actual length of time, okay, for one particular course, rather than strictly adhering to the, if you want, university schedule. And also something that is I must say, a luxury that we do enjoy in the MUS courses is that we can limit the numbers of 24 rather than in the language courses, take as many as 32 students, okay, in one particular course. However, the numbers of students we have on average with 2 groups will have around 30 students or 40 students, okay, as a rule. The concept that I have promoted over the last 8 years has been which I will call 1 + 1 + 1 = 1. Namely, the concept is the combination of the interaction or an interplay between face-to-face contact, for instance, in our block courses, mine on Saturday at one of the regional centers, the online work, which is divided into not only weekly chats, okay, with students, but also my interaction or our interaction with students, whether it's counseling, whether it's emailing, and then the components of self-study. This model, of course, represents flexibility. I've mentioned that the blended learning concept involves intensive work, okay, and blocked course meetings, making it more manageable for students to arrive at various regional centers that we have. I also travel there, or as so to say, a regional draw of students from around the area, weekly chat sessions. The interesting thing, though, is that in spite of the original design for the 75 hours, that what we've actually achieved is promoting more than, or having more than 1/3 hours more contact, okay, with our students than in traditional courses. And of course, we have self-access, self-study tasks, and that's supposed to be portfolio. The implementation, as I said, looks like this, with the model, okay, of online combination in various, okay, amounts of online, face-to-face, and self-study, but also support through Moodle and Adobe Connect and what's known as KUS. This is our registration system at Linz University, and naturally also email and telephone for emergency situations, something that is not generally offered, okay, to other students. We also have the online learning program integrated into the online phase of using Tell Me More, which is now called Rosetta Stone, and I just listed one of the books that we use, namely Business Vocabulary Builders, both for upper, intermediate, and advanced students. The course was originally designed, as I said, for 25 hours of face-to-face and online chat. This, however, has increased, okay, to some 30 to 35 hours, depending upon the content of the course, whether it was intercultural studies or where more writing and presentation skills are emphasized in the Business English 2 courses. What has remained the same is basically 25 hours of work of language work, but also skills work with the Tell Me More Rosetta Stone program. And students generally devote 25 to 35 hours to preparation, okay, of homework, preparation for chats, preparation for meetings, and accomplishing tasks assigned. I just wanted to give you a sample, which you can certainly look at your leisure, something that is very important right in the beginning. Students do an exercise by looking at the general framework for languages, the global skills, and mark all of the things that they feel that they can do, yet highlight all of the things that they feel are not, okay, within their remit, okay, at the moment, or the things that they would like to improve, or where they see gaps. Yeah? And in the first phase of the first module, this is what we do, work out individual learning plans for their self-access work with Tell Me More and other materials, and as a matter of fact, other methodologies, okay, including tandem chats with other colleagues to carry out their own individual learning plan. We have weekly chat sessions. This is an example, always with the sign-on and system check. We're using, again, Adobe Connect as basis for that. This was one particular set of, I had given a set of discussion questions on identity and nationality, and then, of course, the task that would be for the following week and or for the next face-to-face meeting. And this slide just simply shows the possibilities, okay, of, on the one hand, of Adobe Connect, as it is working with a whiteboard, okay, in a small group, collecting ideas which are printable and shareable. Also online chat, the text chat, just as we have in the Click webinar, where students can post questions, and also where I can make observations, okay, about the activity in the group. And as you can see, there's also a possibility, again, for correction or emphasis, where students can receive immediate feedback on their language production, but also on the discussion of their ideas. In an evaluation that we did 2 semesters ago of my students in a questionnaire that I gave around, they found that the weekly chats were useful, that is very useful, for the material that was covered, content, and of course for language practice. Technology glitches weren't seen, however, as such a terrible problem, because we did always manage to solve them together, whether through the chat, whether through a telephone call, or by other colleagues, okay, helping each other. Groups tend not to be particularly shy, but we did have some members that thought that this chat possibility that we have each week was definitely something that would overcome shyness, okay, in the classroom. And finally, as I said, activities that we have, different group settings, okay, possible in the breakout rooms, and really establishing not only a face-to-face community, but also a virtual community every week. This all contributed, or the chats contributed, okay, to this. Another course where we did a ranking, okay, this was an advanced course, as you see, 7 members. The face-to-face sessions and chat sessions were rated highest. The tasks, the homework tasks, the research tasks were that. Online exams, however, of course, don't, as usual, necessarily get high marks, okay, but was also something that was nonetheless appreciated. On all components of the design, on all the tasks, we received positive feedback, and the feeling that learners participating in this kind of course had a contribution to all their parts of learning: skills, content, and language. And above all, that feedback, the immediate feedback, the online feedback, and of course the face-to-face feedback, was something that was highly appreciated. I'd like to make a short excursus to another course, namely my academic writing course, which traditionally has been a weekly 1.5-hour face-to-face meeting, to variations not only on the weekly face-to-face meeting, but also with what learners were doing offline. So in other words, that participation outside of class, and not just for the 1.5 hours, required a different role of the learners, and of course me as the instructor, okay, to monitor, for instance, the discussion blogs that were going on, or to actually conduct face-to-face meetings in real time, to conduct virtual meetings in real time through Adobe Connect, okay? And how the goals and the requirements help to build also this community, the attitudes towards this, leading the students into, we're all in the idea, we have possibilities to share many, many things with one another and profit from that, rather than having the feeling that we're all working alone. And that's, of course, what I mean by community building activities. But also to provide a sense of place. There's a blog I can go to. There's a virtual classroom, okay, where things are happening. There are my peers, in other words, who are also helping me to develop skills by giving me feedback, which, of course, is one of the greatest success factors, okay, in this idea. The students in this course are advanced students. They are working on their bachelor's, or some working on their theses. An increasing amount of students also come to the course for as a PhD students and want to receive feedback on their writing, okay, again, in English. Weekly meetings face-to-face. We have on-time, set times for that, but also the asynchronous forum or blogs. The focus is on process writing, research, the feedback that one receives from both peers and also from the instructor, and something which I've cherished very much through my years of teaching in Cambridge, namely providing supervision for the students, both during the face-to-face meetings, a short discussion about work that they've done, but also pointers how to develop it further. Also mid-semester, okay, with the progress on their research paper, and then at the end of the semester to go over their research paper, their poster, for their poster presentation on their topic. These are just some of the topics that were discussed in the blog. Okay, what is my writing? Okay, where am I with my writing? How do I find a topic, the perennial problem? How to write a proposal and make revisions on it, how to develop my ideas, outlining, finding and evaluating resources, so forth and so on, and then changing the idea, the written paper, the research paper, into a poster presentation for if you want, a fair of ideas, which takes place in the classroom at the end of the semester. The evaluation of 18 of 20, okay, of the participants in this course said that the solutions to problems and their language skills development are what, okay, contributed most, okay, from this course design. Of course, what was very, very important, okay, was the possibility for even more interaction with their colleagues and with the instructor, and also the increased amount of feedback that was possible. A 50-50 said that one of the important things that was learned or practiced, in other words, through the blog, peer review, and the face-to-face feedback was reflecting on my own work and on my own progress. Up to now, with the MUS English courses, to take a step back, we've had more than 400 learners enrolled since the winter term of 2009. We've established 2 regional centers, one in the Lake region and approximately an hour from Linz, okay, and which draws students from Salzburg and from other places in Upper Austria, which are, let's say, over an hour's worth of travel, okay, to Linz itself. We've started the summer schools, okay, in 2 sessions, okay, so in other words, in July, August, and in August, September, which started off in 2010. didn't quite take off. Then we restarted the program in 2014, and that is running to the present. We've had external evaluations of the program from 2010, 2011, and in 2014, and we have established now a MUS quality control group, okay, or MUS quality evaluation group. We're still in the process of this to spread the ideas within and on campus to interested instructors who might want to, who either need help in designing such courses as I've presented or as we have in the other MUS courses, and making changes, additions, blended learning components or online components to traditional classrooms. What I'm very, very proud of is that we submitted the idea for the language learning, for the blended learning course in English to the European Commission, and we received the European Language Label certification and award in 2013. We've also, as I said, one of the things that we started in 2015 was to implement, to put in place a year-long program, okay, for the students, so that, as I said, they could even take one course, take a break, and still complete, okay, their language requirements within a year. We'll be evaluating this very, very shortly. This is just the example of the language certificate for innovation in language learning using Web 2.0 tools, okay, for higher education. Some of the things that we've learned over the course of the last 8 years is that, of course, this particular type of course, a blended learning course, requires or places many different demands on both the e-learners and the e-teachers, namely quite a redefinition of roles, quite a need for flexibility both on the part of the learner and the teacher in organizing time and or spending even more time in a particular course studying than one would in a regular course. That the effective learning, okay, so the effective course design is one of blended learning. Again, a profit for the learners regarding their subjects, regarding skills, learning technology, more time, okay, to work on their tasks. Naturally, it requires of both the learners and the instructors, okay, so balance and discipline, and last but not least, something that will carry over into upcoming teacher training for this type of doing online blended learning courses, with namely an awareness of principles and parameters. Some things speaking for themselves, that namely all the components here raise interest, and as one of my students said, nothing can substitute use to learn a language in a sustainable way. And last but not least, the amount of things to do, the whole workload, which is, as I said, more both for the learners and for the instructors, as to the effectiveness. And this particular comment was that he or she went through a process of recognition, revision, and recycling throughout the course. Last but not least, I think speaking for themselves, and to sum up, okay, the whole idea, only the classroom is not enough.